Hey you, my name is Kayla and welcome to my chaotic corner of the internet. In today's video, we are delving into a series that I gently DNF'd a few years ago. And when I say I gently DNF'd the series, I gently DNF'd the very first book in that series. And that book is And There He Kept Her by Joshua Moehling. This is about Detective Ben Packard, who recently relocated from the Twin Cities in Minnesota up to Sandy Lakes, a fictional small town where he is now a detective and standing sheriff. The main reason that I DNF'd this book was simply because we got to a point where we started to get the POV of our serial killer, which I didn't love because in some ways I felt that it was trying to make the reader feel sympathetic for the serial killer, and I just didn't love that. I didn't love that at the time. But I noted when I originally DNF'd this book that I was really enjoying it. I was really enjoying the story. I was really enjoying the writing style. I was really enjoying our main character, Ben Packard. So it was hard to let it go, and the reason I am returning back to not only And There He Kept Her, but the rest of the series is because I was able to get my hands on the arc for Beneath a Broken Sky. This book comes out on May 26th, and I am so excited for not only myself to read it, but for y'all to read it. And I'm not gonna lie, I have started reading it. I'm on chapter 11. And while honestly, I know I could continue reading this book as is, it reads very easily as its own individual book. I also know that I've missed some storylines along the way. Ben went from being the standing sheriff to running for sheriff to losing against a guy who sounds like a schmuck. Not quite sure how this other dude won sheriff, but I want to find out more about those events that transpired and what the heck is going on with Ben and his love life, because it sounds like there's a new man in town. And we haven't met him in this book, but I'm sure we've met him in the other two books in this 4-book series so far. These books all read fairly easily as a standalone. This is the very first one. That's not a good example to be holding. They read very well as their own standalone books, like most detective books do. But I want to know. I want to know what's going on with Ben, because he's the whole reason it was so hard for me to put down And There He Kept Her. So before I continue on with reading Beneath the Broken Sky, I really need to read the other ones. But let me tell you why I wanted to pick up Beneath the Broken Sky. It wasn't just because it was Ben Packard that we were hanging out with again. It was because this cover evoked such a visceral reaction for me as someone who currently lives in Minnesota, as someone who grew up in Minnesota. Storm season honestly was my favorite season. Sound crazy. I absolutely know that this takes place during tornado season. And as someone who lives specifically in the cities, we didn't get hit with tornadoes a lot. It's really hard for a tornado to actually develop within a city structure because there's just not as much open room for a tornado to happen. With that noted, we got the side effects, if you will, of tornadoes, and that's skies turning yellow, the air just, you could smell the earth. And it was just this very weird in-between world where it wasn't daytime and it wasn't nighttime. The sky was yellow. It was all a little darker. It was really moody. Think like Twilight, but yellow. This cover really gave me a visceral reaction. And to find out that this book was about the aftermath of a tornado hitting the town, there's storm chasers coming in, there's a dead woman. It's just, there's a lot of moving parts in this book. And I was like, why, yes, I want to see how Ben Packard handles this situation. And then again, as I started reading the first few chapters, I was like, oh, there is some backstory to this that I don't think it would hurt to read. So we have And There He Kept Her, which is book 1. We have Where the Dead Sleep, which is book 2. And then we have A Long Time Gone, which is book 4. And I just have to say to the publishers, the first 2 books are the exact same height. The third book, The third book is not the same height. What the heck? What the heck? But that is so rude. And this is coming from someone who doesn't even care about the levels of their bookshelf. I don't care if a super tall book is next to a super short book, but I do have some issues when the continuity of a series doesn't align. That's my only complaint. We will be talking about the summary of each book before we actually start reading them. So with that noted, let me tell you what And There He Kept Her is all about. When two teenagers break into a house on a remote lake in search of prescription drugs, what starts as a simple burglary turns into a nightmare for all involved. Emmett Burr has secrets he's been keeping in his basement for more than 2 decades, and he'll do anything to keep his past from being revealed. As he gets the upper hand on his tormentors, the line blurs between predator, prey, and protector. Personal tragedy has sent former police officer Ben Packard back to a small town of Sandy Lake in search for a fresh start. Now a sheriff's deputy, Packard is leading the investigation into the missing teens, motivated by a family connection. As clues dry up and time runs out to save them, Packard is forced to reveal his own secrets and dig deep to uncover the dark past of the place he now calls home. Unrelentingly suspenseful and written with a piercing gaze into the depths of the human soul, And There He Kept Her is a thrilling page-turner that introduces readers to a complicated new hero and forces us to consider the true nature of evil. I got 100 pages into this book last time I started reading it, and I was really enjoying it. So Ben's whole shtick, he was a cop down in Minneapolis, and he is a gay man, and he was having a relationship with another police officer in the force. I can't recall if the rest of the police officers knew that they were together, but they definitely knew that they were really good friends. And what ended up happening was that Ben's partner ended up transferring to St. Paul, and he went to take care of a domestic dispute call, and as soon as he showed up, he was shot and killed on the spot. And Ben just couldn't handle the loss of his partner Marcus, and he decided, instead of staying in a place that reminded him so much of Marcus, he decided to move back to Sandy Lake. That is how we start the story, is with Ben arriving back in Sandy Lake. Well, technically, the story right off the rip starts with the teenagers breaking into the house trying to get prescription drugs. I think I'm going to actually start this book from scratch because I can't remember those nuanced details. I am very excited to be back with Mr. Packard because he's just a romp. I don't even know how to explain him. He's like sassy, but not sassy, sarcastic, very sure of himself. I just know this man's hot as fuck. Every time this man is described, like physically, I'm like, he's a hot man. It says he has like the build of a swimmer. Swimmers have great builds, broad shoulders, narrow waists, big thighs. Marcus also sounded very hot. Marcus was a black man. Packard is a white man. I love how I held up the book as if this was Packard. I can't remember the exact descriptions for Marcus, but I just remember like, oh, these two men would be like, you would walk down the street and just stare at them. Anyways, let's get into rereading And There He Kept Her so that we can continue on with the series.
A few years ago, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be an annotation girly. So you can see I definitely was doing the tabs. However, we find a page that has tabs on it. I would just tab passages and stuff, but I wouldn't underline, I wouldn't highlight, I would just put a tab where I was like, oh yeah, that's like a section I want to mark for some reason. But I literally didn't add any notes, nothing else. I would just throw tabs into the book. The way I do things now is I don't use tabs at all. Now I just write. I just write in my books. No tabbing, no referring back. If I want, I find my scribbles in the books. And honestly, I kind of like that more for me. Really fun to see the thoughts, feelings, and opinions I had about a book as I'm going through it. I try typically, as you saw, Phantasma had red ink in it. For a cover like this, I'll probably do like a blue, a pink, maybe a yellow because it has these fun neon yellow windows. I don't think I have yellow anymore. But also I do have these sparkly gel pens. So I might use a sparkly gel pen with this one. This is my pen lineup. This is my book. Let's crack into And There He Kept Her. And let's add some scribbles to this one.
The road was gravel and getting muddier by the minute. Jesse tried running along the edge, but the ground was soft, and soon his feet were as wet as his hooded sweatshirt. He bypassed the staircase, pulling up his hood as he skidded down a muddy set of uneven steps alongside the house. He reached inside, undid the bolt and the twist lock on the doorknob. Thunder rolled overhead as he pushed the door open and stepped over the broken glass. A telephone with a tortured, twisted cord hung on the wall. On his right, an old refrigerator droned. In front of the shelves, he saw a rocking chair with cracked leather on the seat and on the back. The sawed-off section of a tree trunk was being used as a side table. The other corner of the basement was built out into a small room with a metal door. It could have been for storage, but his gut told him it was something else. Shaw liked Packard for the job because he worked hard and came with no baggage. The sheriff, or the acting sheriff, had to be unpopular at times. Packard had no alliances, no grudges, no debts. The purpose of these visits
She calls him Benjamin.
Informed about what was going on at work. She wondered from town gossip to the weather to if they were still treating him, it meant they hadn't given up. That's all he needed to know. I'll see you again soon. Let me know if you guys need anything. She could come off as humorless if you didn't know her. Also, if you did. She and Packard were cousins.
It's interesting to see the bad guy's POV so early on, because this right here, first off, not a lot of pages in, page 56 at the end of chapter 6. The reason I'm calling this out
is because, as I noted earlier, the main reason I had DNF this book was because we were getting the bad guy's POV. And also, I think it's a recurring theme that's going to happen. I don't know for sure. We'll find out, obviously, as we read more. But where I left off in Beneath the Broken Sky, we had just gotten a potential bad guy's POV. Not 100% sure. A part of me feels like it's a red herring in that book, but you never know. I'm intrigued to see like where this is going to go, because one of my favorite books about mysteries and detective novels and thrillers and horror, like anything, really anything. I love solving a puzzle. Like I like trying to figure out what is going on with the book. And when you're automatically given a point of view from the bad guy, when you get that point of view, that kind of takes away the mystique and the mystery of what's going on. So yeah, I'm just intrigued to see kind of like if this is a repetitive thing, like we're always going to get the bad guy's point of view, or if I feel like in this one he's definitely the serial killer, and he definitely killed someone at the beginning of the book. Don't love Emmett, don't love his point of view, and that's, again, ultimately why I DNF'd it the first time. But I am enjoying it. It's also fun to see, again, because I started reading Beneath the Broken Sky, I'm being reintroduced to characters, and specifically Gary Bushwick. My favorite. He was a porn star, I think in the 80s. He's fabulous. He calls everyone honey. It just so happens that he lives next to a crazy religious woman, but he also runs and owns a dog shelter where he saves dogs. Oh, he's just the sweetest character ever. What's happened so far in the book? Kids went into the house. They were discovered. After that, we no longer have that point of view. Ben integrating himself into the community. We're meeting all the random characters in the community. Met one of the teenagers' moms who's reporting that her daughter's missing. Ben is now looking into the matter. We have just gotten the point of view of Emmett, who is our bad guy. Today feels like the longest day on the face of the planet. It is currently just shortly after 1, but it truly feels like 3:30. Like I feel like I should be getting off of work soon, but I'm not. Yeah, who are you talking to? This is my treat. What do you think you're doing? Only good girls get treats, and you're barking. Goodbye. We've officially passed the mark of where I had left off last time. I'm really glad we're returning back to this. Also, I don't know what's changed in the past 2 years. Hey, can you go to your crate? Are you talking to Des like that? Part of me is like, have I got desensitized from reading horror books? Because before picking this book up, I didn't really read horror at all. I've been reading a lot of horror the past 2 years. So I'm like, I wonder if that's desensitizing me. I don't know. I always love this. Like, this is supposed to be a small town in northern Minnesota, right? The way things are operating, specifically once we get to book 4, doesn't feel that way yet with book 1. But book 4, I'm like, this feels like a whole ass police force that you would have like down in the Twin Cities, not some podunk little town up north. Trying to like reframe this town to be more like the size of maybe St. Cloud. If we're going a little smaller, Alexandria. Like, that's what I'm trying to think. So it's going to have a larger police force, more than just like a sheriff and a deputy kind of situation. Also, a lot of crazy shit is happening in this book. We have kids selling drugs. We have a kid who got smushed underneath the car, but it seems suspicious why he got smushed underneath the car. And then the girl who is in care of Emmett, Jenny, she's the girlfriend of the new drug dealing person in the high school. Lots of stuff going on in this small town. And oh my God, I love Gary so much. Gary's great. Also, Ben is very wound tight in this book. He doesn't feel as wound tight in book 4, so I'm just intrigued to see kind of like the character shift for him. All of that to say, I'm really enjoying this. I literally found this book, or this series, when this book came out, and I'm really glad that I found the arc, because honestly, I probably wouldn't have returned to this book again if I didn't get access to the arc. And I was shocked when I saw that the arc was book 4 in the series, because I didn't realize more had come out from this. Long story short, I'm just glad to be back with Detective Ben Packard, because he truly was my favorite part of this book, and the only reason I set it down was because of Emmett. Well, Emmett has one thing going for him, I guess. Jenny trying to barter with him for insulin because she's a diabetic and has an insulin pump. And she's like, I'll do anything. What do I need to do? Do I have to give you a blowjob? Emmett was really taken aback by that. He's like, excuse me? Ew, gross. And at first I was like, interesting, because you have kidnapped women for nefarious reasons. However, Emmett has a little bit of morals, y'all. He may be an awful, terrible human being, but he ain't no pedophile. I guess he's got that going for him. With that noted, he could still potentially kill Jenny. He's just not gonna fuck her.
The mutual recognition felt like a shockwave that would have knocked them both down had they been standing. Emmett froze, trying to comprehend all the ways the woman across from him looked different, but was definitely still his ex-wife. I'm afraid there's just one problem, she said as she ran a finger across several of the spines. It was Ruth. She called the police before or after he left. Why else would they show up just now? I don't need a babysitter, detective. If we're done, I'm going inside. What about your groceries? People came in and people left. Ruth had flipped over the last of her pages and was making notes on back. You make a lot of trips to the pharmacy when your daughter is type 1 and your husband is dying of a brain tumor. Outside, he and Thielen zipped up their jackets and stopped to figure out their next move. She was right, but it didn't make him feel any better.
We are so close to finishing, and there he kept her, and it's starting to pick up speed, but not in like a bad way, not in a it's rushing itself kind of way, but in a, oh, we're about to like solve the crime and wrap up this book kind of way, if that makes sense. I have a hunch that Emmett, even though he's an absolute terrible person and he's technically the one keeping Jenny captive, I feel like he's gonna be the hero at the end of the day. Because there's another guy that I haven't talked about, and his name is Carl, Charlie, Chuck. It's a C word. He is the bad guy. He is the guy who wants to use and abuse the captives. He's the guy who has very nefarious reasons for using Emmett's basement. Emmett literally created Captive's Room. He calls it his genie in the bottle, his little sanctuary for his genie. He created it for one particular person in mind. He's only brought that one person into the space, and that was 20 years ago at this point. I think even longer ago than that. And I'm not saying he was an absolute horrible, terrible, awful person for this happening. And he's still an awful, horrible, terrible person for letting what has happened in this basement continue to happen. This is why I don't like having the serial killer's point of view, because he's trying to take care of Jenny. I think he's gonna save the day. I don't know how, but I think he is. I also think he's gonna end up dead.
Tell me why ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why ain't nothing but a mistake. Tell me why I never wanna hear you say I want it that way.
Could be totally wrong. Packard just got a call about a woman who thinks her husband's dead because there's a bunch of blood in like their entryway, like smeared all over the door, right? However, Emmett just got home. Emmett also did some crazy shit just now, or 2 chapters ago. Oh my God, I loved it so much. It was so amazing. However, Emmett just got home and he's like, something's not right. And a part of me is like, oh my God, what if the thing that's not right is that old girl escaped
and she was the bloody mess in the doorway. Ben Packard is so fucking wholesome. He's going on a date with a little old lady. It's so cute. I love that ending so much. That was so wholesome. This is like sinister small town detective vibes to its core. I feel like usually small town detective series, they're usually a lot more cozier. Let me backtrack. All of the small town detective series that I've read have been cozier. This is far more sinister, but it still has its very sweet small town moments. And I love it so much. And it feels like home. I will say my initial qualms and the reason I DNF'd it is still valid. It's still kind of like, wasn't my favorite part that we had the POV of Emmett. I'm really glad I gave this book a second chance, and I'm just so excited to go on more adventures with Detective Ben Packard. All of the small town people, all of the people we meet and interact with, they've all been a great time. Love, I think her name's Karen or Kelly. Can't remember which. There's also a Detective Thielen. Can't remember her first name. He just calls her Thielen, so I'm just gonna call her Thielen. Gary Bushwright, oh my god, love him. Cora, she is just a menace, but I love the dynamic between her and Gary, as problematic as it is. I guess I should provide some insight to that. Cora is very much a Bible thumping Christian, and Gary is a very, very gay man. It's so good. And I'm very excited to see what we get into in Where the Dead Sleep. What is Where the Dead Sleep about? Great question. Let's find out together. When an early morning call brings Deputy Ben Packard to the scene of a home invasion, he finds Bill Sanderson shot in his bed. Bill was a well-liked local who chased easy money his whole life, leaving bad debts and broken hearts in his wake. Everyone Packard talks to has a story about Bill, but no one has a clear motive for wanting him dead. The business partner, the ex-wife, the current wife, the high-stakes poker buddies. Any of them or none of them could be guilty. As the investigation begins, tragedy strikes the sheriff's department, forcing Packard to make a difficult choice about his future. Step down as the acting sheriff and pursue the quiet life he came to Sandy Lake in search of, or subject himself to the scrutiny of an election for sheriff, a job he's not sure he wants. There's a hidden history to Sandy Lake that Packard, ever the outsider, can't see. Bad blood and old secrets run deep. But an attempt on Packard's life means he's getting uncomfortably close to the dangerous legacy of the quiet Minnesota town. And someone will do anything to keep it hidden. I already know the devastating tragedy that happens. I don't even have to read the book. There's a person in book 1 that's going through something. You already know what's happening, unfortunately. That's so sad. Ugh. That's so sad. I'm already sad and I haven't even started the book. I'm so glad Ben has a dog now. He named his dog Frank after his grandfather, Frank. His name's Frank Franklin Packard. And his corgi, it's a corgi by the way, has 3 legs. Let's start Where the Dead Sleep by Joshua Moehling. I did not think I was going to cry. The tragic event that we were told was going to happen has happened. So early on. We're already 55 pages in. I feel like this book is just flying by. The last book, I don't know, I felt like it kind of built things up. And this one, I'm just like, oh, we're like diving head first into the deep end. Well, I mean, the first book also was introducing specifically Packard. Just so much has happened right off the rip. We have the dead body. We're already talking to witnesses, potential suspects, already trying to solve the crime, already the tragic event happened. Pretty much everything that's in the summary has happened by page 55. And I don't know how I feel about it. I'm intrigued to see where we go, though, from here. Because the one thing I do like about how we're just jumping into the deep end is that we're getting to solve the crime a lot faster. We're already trying to figure out why the heck Bill was shot in his bed. So I haven't gotten much further in Where the Dead Sleep. However, I was just like looking at the cover. I really like the coloring on this cover. And actually, I highlighted a section is perfect for this cover. And I'm hoping that's what they based the cover off of. The sky was turning from purple to gray with the coming dawn as Packard poured coffee into his travel mug. Is that not like literally this cover? The first book was And There He Kept Her, which makes sense because Jenny was locked up by Emmett in his genie bottle, right? Where the Dead Sleep makes sense because our man's Bill was found dead in his bed. But also, I think this has a double meaning to it. I don't think I've told you guys about. Is like a pivotal part of who Packard is and why he moved from the Twin Cities to Sandy Lakes. In his youth, he and his family used to vacation in Sandy Lakes all the time. However, one year, Ben's brother, Nick, went missing, never to be found again. They didn't find a body. They never heard from him again. He just up and vanished from Sandy Lakes. I have a feeling that either in this book or the next book, Nick's case is going to be solved. And also towards the end of And There He Kept Her, Ben was just like, why don't I solve it? I work for this police department now. I have access to the files. And he asked Kelly to pull the file for him. And the case number was right. There was a spot for the file in the case files, but the file itself wasn't there. And he knows it was there a week ago, a month ago. Where's this file? And we just kind of left with that question of, where's this file? And there's a lake on this cover where the dead sleep. I'm just curious if we're going to find Nick's body in the lake. Just thoughts. Anyways, I really like this cover. Oh my god, there's so many babies. How stinking cute was that? I don't know if I got a good shot of it, but there was a bunch of little baby geese and I loved it. Listen, Canadian geese, there's some nasty motherfuckers, but the babies, the geeslings, so stinking cute. Anyways, I went to the library. Now I'm heading home. The entire time I have been listening to Where the Dead Sleep. It's moving. I would be curious to see how far I am in the actual physical book. One thing I'm really loving about this series and these people is they're just all so quick and they're all so witty. And I'm just having a grand old time. Ooh, you can taste the honey in that. You can taste the honey in that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Can you taste the honey in that? We got to keep Echo away from the coffee because she has been known to drink my coffee from time to time. Jinx has zero interest in my coffee. Echo, on the other hand, I do call you my little cup of cocoa. I was meaning hot chocolate, but coffee works too. Halfway through Where the Dead Sleep, and a lot of stuff has happened. And it's been a couple days since I last caught up with you guys. Today's gonna be perfect. As you can see by my little hairs, it's a little windy out. It's gonna be a little chilly out today. It's supposed to rain later today. Today's gonna be a vibe. Today is like the perfect day to read some books, crochet a cardigan I'm working on. I'm so excited. But we have this book to finish. We have another book to start, and then we have another book to finish, and we only have technically, I'm giving myself 3 days to do all that and edit a video. I think we're gonna power through for sure this book. I have the audiobook for the third book in this series. The whole reason that today is like such a vibe is because yesterday and the day before was a little toasty. We got up into the 80s. I think the day before we got up into like the low 90s. It was toasty. It was toasty. I don't even know where to like catch you guys up on. The run for sheriff is starting. Packard is still telling everyone that he's not running. However, he just had a conversation with the widow of the former sheriff, and she's like, let me tell you why he made you acting sheriff. And so I think she's putting a little pep in his step to potentially run. But additionally,
Remember how I was talking about Packard was looking for the cold case file for his missing brother? Old Widow walks out with a white case file and she's like, yeah, old boy. He's like, why does the name Packard sound so familiar? And then one day they were talking about the Emmett Burr case and how they were talking about the missing people in relation to Emmett Burr. And then it sparked something in old sheriff's head. And he was like, Packard, that's the missing boy. Missing boy's Packard. Ben Packard's brother. So that happened. The attack that was mentioned on the back has happened. And it wasn't as crazy as I thought it was. It might be a little bit more crazy though, because Packard's neighbor was telling him that like there's been a car creeping around the area, but it could be a hostile, suspicious situation, or it could be like someone from his past trying to like reach out and touch somebody, you know? I think next time I check in with you guys, hopefully I'll be done with the book, or knowing me, I like to tell you guys my thoughts, feelings, and opinions as we go throughout a book. So maybe like right before the very end, I'll tell you where we're at. Oh, and by the way, no clue who killed this dude, but it's a really messy family situation. He wants you to start fresh. He wants you to see it from a fresh start. I hope I'm right. That was a good ending. That was a good ending. Sheriff Stan had to make an appearance at the very end, which got me teary-eyed. Remember the cold case file I told you about? It's wiped with a letter and some photos. And I think it was wiped because Stan knows that Packard needs to see this with fresh eyes. Just an assumption, just my thoughts and opinions, but we'll find out more in A Long Time Gone. This was really good. I enjoyed it so much. I just am having so much fun with Detective Packard. Another fun thing about this book in particular that definitely leads into like how I'm feeling about Packard from book 1 to Beneath the Broken Sky is I was like, there's definitely not a stark difference, but a difference between book 1 Ben and book 4 Ben. Book 1 Ben was a little bit more closed off, a little bit more reserved, and book 4 Ben is a little more chillaxed, a little bit more friendly, a little bit more interactive with the community, and that's because of his run for sheriff in this. He quite literally acknowledges to himself how he always felt like he had to be buttoned up, professional, keep things, you know, tight, and just like do his job. But when he was running for sheriff, like you have to be a little bit more loose, a little bit more friendly, like you're trying to get people to vote for you. It's kind of nice to see him relax a little more. I'm intrigued to see where things go from here, because this, while we did solve the crime and we did figure out who killed Bill, which wild, crazy turns, there's still mystery. There's still an unknown. There was still an attempt at Ben Packard's life. And we have a general idea, at least the connection the shooter has. But we don't know who the shooter is. And I'm very intrigued. If we don't find out about it in here, maybe in future books. Let's read what A Long Time Gone is about. Also, the cover for A Long Time Gone has something to do, I think, I obviously haven't read the books, I don't know for sure, but Packard was shot at through a window in this book. Ben Packard was just a boy when his older brother disappeared. Ben watched him walk out the back door of their grandparents' house and into the cold night. His brother was never seen again. Decades later, Deputy Packard finds himself with too much time on his hands. A shooting has him on leave and under investigation, and for the first time in years, new information about his brother has surfaced that may lead them to the location of a body. The midwinter ground is frozen solid. Worse, Packard is cut off from department resources, As he strikes out to finally uncover the truth behind his brother's disappearance, he stumbles on a separate, suspicious death. A tenuous connection exists between the two cases, and as Packard starts to dig, he meets fierce resistance from friends and foes alike who want him to stand down. The winter is long and cold. By the end of it, Packard will risk everything to catch a killer and reveal the shocking truth about his brother. I'm so excited to hop into this. I feel like there's more I want to say about this, but all the things I want to say about this book are just like little nuanced details about the mystery element of it. And truly, like, you guys need to read this series. You need to read the series. So as much as I love giving spoilers and just like delving into what I love about things and like just little Easter eggs and stuff, I'm gonna do my best to resist. Okay. Just know I'm having such a good time and I'm really enjoying this. I'm excited to hop into this. Let's go. This wolf guy's a dickhole. Fuck you, wolf. I am roughly just about, I think I was like 48% of the way into the book. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have much to say. This one has a very different energy to it because while Packard is in the police force, he's technically on leave, but technically on leave from his like current position that he was holding. And so he's still a deputy. He's still detective. Like, he's still all these things. He found a case that was a scene that was discovered during the Emmett Burr case. So he wasn't a part of the scene that was discovered. It was Shepard. I don't think I've ever talked about Shepard, but he is pretty much the most incompetent deputy on the sheriff's department. He's the one who discovered the scene. He didn't think much of it. The scene was literally an older woman had a welfare check made on her, and she was discovered dead. But it looked like that the woman just like fell down the stairs, and also just so happened that she fell down the stairs and there was like a bottle of bourbon next to her or something. So it was just like, oh, she was just drunk, she's older, she fell downstairs, she died. Packard discovered this scene because the woman who died was living in the house that his grandpa built. So this was like the house that he spent all his summers up in Sandy Lake at. His mom was in town. She was like, why don't we just swing by, go say hi to Louise. Louise is the woman who died. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. But when they showed up, there was like sheriff's tape on it because the house was like, don't enter. Like, it's just an empty house. No one lives here. They're still figuring out what to do with this property. And so Packard was like, well, let's just go in. I'm with the sheriff's department. So when they go in, he's like, wait a second. There's no logical way this woman could have just like fallen down the stairs because the door at the top of the stairs, you have to pull open to fall through. It's not like it pushes in to fall through. And he's like, that doesn't make sense. And then there's like some other things that weren't adding up. There was like some blood, some hair. And he's like, I don't think this death was due to natural causes. And so he's now investigating that case. I don't know, something about this one feels a lot different because he isn't doing like other sheriff, deputy, police officer type things. He's just focusing on this one instance. So I feel like we're like honing in on it more. And also in this book, I feel like we're spending the most time with Packard. In the very first book, we were breaking it up between Packard and Emmett. And then the second book, we broke it up a little bit between Packard and someone else, but that someone else only had like a very select amount of chapters. In this book, I don't think we've had a different point of view. It's all been just hanging out with Packard, solving this case, and I'm really digging it. I was sitting here like trying to justify why this police force was so robust, and then I realized when Packard was running for sheriff, I was going to say mayor, when he was running for sheriff, that it's sheriff of the county. I don't know why my brain was thinking it's just sheriff of like that individual little town of Sandy Lake. No, it's sheriff for the entire county. I don't know why I needed to make that statement, but I needed to make that statement apparently. He is also kind of working on solving the case of his brother.
I am intrigued to see if they like intertwine and cross paths at all. I highly doubt they will. Highly doubt they will. But I'm intrigued to see if he figures out what happens to his brother in this book, or that's going to be like kind of an ongoing thread throughout the next few books. Josh, can I call you Josh? Okay, cool. We have beef. Let me tell you why we have beef. Currently, Detective Ben Packard is in St. Paul. He's over by the Capitol. Why is he over by the Capitol? Because he has to talk to some hoe about some shit. And she is a sketchy person. Packard drove east on I-94, took the Kellogg exit. To his right, on a hill overlooking downtown, the Cathedral of St. Paul's copper dome burned bright in the sun. To his left, the white dome of the state capitol seemed dowdy in comparison. The Capitol? The dome of the Capitol seemed dowdy compared to the Cathedral of St. Paul. Don't get me wrong. The Cathedral of St. Paul, absolutely stunning, gorgeous, beautiful, amazing. She is the moment. She is quite literally on the top of a hill above the Capitol. But the Capitol of St. Paul is, in my humble opinion, like top 10 capitals in the United States. Top 5 capitals in the United States. Honestly, I put it at top 1, but I have seen some other pretty dope looking Capitol buildings. The St. Paul Capitol, it's white marble. It is white marble. It glistens. It shines in the sunlight. It looks stunning. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And then it has a gold statue on top. But you get the sun hitting that gold statue and explosion. It is stunning, gorgeous, beautiful, amazing. And then you go inside. Inside is just as magnificent. And if anything, honestly, I would say like the inside of the Capitol is a little dowdy because it's a lot darker. It's like dark woods, but like the whole thing is white marble. But you're calling the Capitol of Minnesota dowdy? Honestly, to be quite frank with you, I would call the Cathedral of St. Paul dowdy compared to the state capitol. I don't know the exact material it's made out of, to be honest with you, but it's like this gray, it's slightly darker. I'm gonna say marble. We'll just say it's marble. I don't know if that's accurate, but we're saying it's marble. The only reason it looks more magnificent is because it quite literally is on top of the hill. Like, it's a hill, and then at the bottom of the hill is the capitol. That's my beef with you. That's all. That's your architectural lesson of today, kids. Okay, so this book is really good if you like corrupt people laundering money, stealing money more like it. Because we got the FBI involved in this. There's at very minimum, nationwide scam going on. And the person at the middle of it. It makes me happy. It makes me happy. There's vindication in knowing that he is quite literally super shady. The Nick Packard situation is kind of on the back burner. It was brought up recently in regards to like, we're gonna start looking into it in springtime because it's winter. Currently we're in winter. That the next book, Beneath a Broken Sky, is set in summer. And we're almost done with this guy. So I'm curious what's gonna happen during spring.
Why were there lights on then?
I want justice. I want justice. I want justice. Such a coward. Couldn't even face your own actions. So we figured out who was the troublemaker behind a bunch of shit and who was stirring the pot behind the background. It's just like corrupt dominoes, you know? I just want them to catch the bad guy and for them to be like locked up so they can rot away in jail. Anyways, so what's interesting though is after something is solved, like the crime is solved and we have kind of like the happy ending of the book, there's always additional stuff going on, but it's usually only maybe for a chapter or two, just wrapping up the end of the story. But in this book, we still have quite a few pages here. We have like 30 pages left. Packard was looking into his brother's death, but definitely like the main case was in regards to Luis and like the craziest scam on the, maybe not the craziest, but a scam as well, money scamming, whatever. So I'm just curious what's gonna happen in these 30 pages. Also, Sheriff Shepard, you're looking a little suspicious, my dude. I feel like there may need to be an investigation into you, considering how close you were to the people who were corrupt and scamming people.
When he had time, he helped Thielen catalog the evidence against Andrea Hopkins. They found her curly hair in Jim Wolfe's mom's car and in the boat that was abandoned after someone shot at Packard at Leon Chen's house. When Packard reached out to Agent Riley and asked her if there would be any charges in the Sandy Lake area fraud, "You make it sound like I owe you, don't you?" Packard shut down the whole northern branch of the meal reimbursement cartel. Later, they had meetings with the governor and the heads of the Minnesota House and the Senate. Then another meeting with just the governor. Like it did every year, spring finally returned to northern Minnesota. One day, the lakes were solid and chiseled. The next, the ice was out and wind moved across the water. Packard had been told that the dog, whose name was Rumor, was one of the best. Rumor could tell the difference between animal and human remains, could locate the scent of decay if it was decades old. The weight of recent events had Packard feeling like he was slowly being corkscrewed into the ground. At the sight of Kyle, he felt his shoulders go up and back. He smiled. "What are you doing here?"
That was such a beautiful ending. Literally the last sentence. We found Nick, but like with all great mystery stories, it's about the details. And I'm not gonna tell you the details. It was sad and upsetting and devastating, but the last sentence is the most important sentence. Oh, I loved it so much. I still have a bone with you, Mr. Moehling. Can't believe you said that the cathedral shone brighter and made the state capitol look dowdy. I will never get over that. I have been feeling the vibes of Minnesota throughout this entire series so far, and then you just had to go and pull that one-liner. One sentence. One sentence, and I'm questioning everything about you. This was a good one. This was a good one. But now it is time to delve into Beneath the Broken Sky. Oh my God. I have already started reading that. That is what intrigued me to read the other two books. We've already talked about that. This comes out on May 26th. I have been having such a good time with this book. I'm pretty sure I've already mentioned it. It just it feels like a hot, humid Minnesota summer. It evokes that. It feels that way. And we are currently 30%. I feel so much further than 30% into this book, but we're 30% into this book. However, this book is doing what book one did, where we're getting a new perspective. I remember where I left off with this book is I had just read a chapter from the new perspective. I don't know if he is the bad guy, but he definitely is a bad guy. We'll see what happens. Also, we all know Detective Ben Packard is a gay man, and we all know that he left Minneapolis after the death of his partner, Marcus. And Marcus's sister makes an appearance in this. But let me tell you what Beneath the Broken Sky is all about. Now, I could give you a summary of what I've read so far, but truly, I don't want to give any potential spoilers. Not only is what I'm reading an arc, and hopefully my yapping about all the other books leading up to this book will entice you to go out and give this a whirl. But anyways, with that noted, a killer hides in the wreckage of a broken town. It's a hot, miserable summer in the small town of Sandy Lake. Detective Ben Packard has finally settled into life here, just in time for a tornado to sweep through the county, causing irreparable damage. Trees are felled, homes are destroyed, and people are desperate. Hiding among the debris is someone with a secret. When a mother who made enemies defending her bullied son is killed, the suspect list stretches across the entire town. For Packard, the case hits uncomfortably close to home. The deeper he digs, the more Sandy Lake hums with a tension that refuses to break. As thick smoke from nearby wildfires chokes the air, someone from Packard's past shows up on his doorstep without warning, forcing him to confront the reality of navigating his life as a gay man in a small town bent on tradition, no matter the cost. The heat suffocates, the violence simmers. Before the summer is out, someone else will die. Dun, dun, dun! I just want to catch you up quickly to where I'm at, like thoughts, feelings, opinions, temperature check. I am really enjoying this. As I've noted multiple times, literally just stated earlier, it feels like a hot, humid summer in Minnesota. Additionally,
We get more interactions with Gary Bushwright, who is probably one of my favorite side characters. We're getting more of Thielen and her personal life. I'm intrigued to see if we're gonna get more of Reynolds. Reynolds is the new detective on the force. We actually got quite a bit of him in the book we just read. So I'm intrigued to see if how much more we're gonna get of him in here, because Thielen is currently on leave. And so Reynolds is working with Packard directly now, whereas before he was working with Thielen. I am still really intrigued to see the dynamic that we're gonna get with Sheriff Shepard because of his connections with the corrupt people. Like, I'm curious if that's gonna come into play here. Also, there's been some loose ends here and there from the other books, and maybe I'm making up those loose ends, but I'm just curious to see if it'll come into play here. Y'all, the vibes the other night, specifically in regards to reading this book, immaculate. I feel like I'm taking forever reading this book, and I feel like I've just read so much of it, and yet I've read so little of it. Echo Light's sitting out in the storm with me, like she doesn't mind getting wet. Jinx will sit, like she was here the whole time. She was just sitting inside watching the storm. I'm very blessed to have dogs that are indifferent when it comes to storms. Echo, you're really cute and all, but you make a terrible window. Are you gonna sit down or are you just gonna swirl around in circles? I'm trying to talk to the people. Truly though, I don't really have an update about the book, but what I do want to note is that this book will be coming out tomorrow if I post this on the day that I want. I want to post this video on the 25th. So as long as we have this posted on the 25th, this book is coming out May 26th. I am so excited. You should be so excited. If you haven't read the rest of them, you should read the rest of them. I can't wait to read this more when it's raining, because it's supposed to rain later today and it's supposed to rain tomorrow. Fingers crossed it actually keeps that promise, because we need a wet spring. No, Canada needs a wet spring. Yeah, I knew it. Easton. Pew 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 pew. Pew 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 pew. Jurassic Park sounds like such a banger of a movie to watch right now. I don't know why that theme song just popped in my head, but it did. Beneath a Broken Sky by Joshua Moehling. What a rip-roaring ride of a time. I'm not gonna lie though, this book did take me exponentially longer to read it than I thought it would. Something in like the first half of the book, and because I don't want to give the plot away, the storyline away. I don't want to give spoilers away. I can't really say like the plot element that made this impact. I was getting a little bored with the book. Call me cuckoo, call me crazy, because I'm always the person that says I love character development, I love character interaction. But with this one, there was a sequence of events that took up a few chapters, and I would say was probably around roughly quarter, maybe third of the way through the book, with that noted the ending of the book, that section that I was like, I don't care about, felt validated at the end of the book. The first quarter of the book has like a crazy start. We have our death right off the bat, but then we have this like lull of a plot. And then we go back into the detective work. And for me personally, while yes, I do love character development and character growth and character interactions, it's so interesting because I want to be like, when I'm reading a detective novel, I just want the mystery. I just want to solve the crime. But one of the things I have truly loved about Moehling's work with Detective Packard is that it's not just solving the crime. I always find that he has like a really good balance. I'm thinking of a couple different detective mystery novels, and sometimes it's a lot of the solving of the crime. Those ones, even if they're part of a series, feel very individual and like you could just pick it up and read it off on its own and it's perfectly fine because it really hones in on the detective work and solving that particular sequence of events. But then there's other books that I've read where it's so much about the community element and about the characters that it's like the mystery element is just kind of like slapped together at the very end, and you're like, well, we knew something happened at the beginning, and then nothing to really solve it happened throughout the entire book until like the very end. All of a sudden, we have our crime figured out. Bad guy's going to jail. And you're like, well, how did this happen? With Moehling's work and with Detective Ben Packard in particular, we get like a really good mix of the two. Like we have our individual crimes that happen on a case-by-case scenario, and those are the elements that you could easily read one book at a time and like out of order. But then we also have these characters that interact and have stories and have plot developments and have timeline developments and like have growth throughout the books. And if you don't read these books in order, like you're missing impactful moments that happen between characters. That's one of the things I really love about it. So that's why it was really, for me, conflicting to have like this character building sequence of events and me feeling just kind of meh about those parts. And now I'm just rambling on about this one section that I didn't particularly love, but ultimately ended up appreciating at the end. I won't waffle on anymore about that part. On to the rest of the book. So at about like the halfway point is where things picked up again, is where we started solving the crime, is where we started figuring out what's going on. And y'all, when I say that Beneath a Broken Sky is the most brutal and tragic crime that Packard has solved to date, it is the most brutal and tragic crime. Like, everyone and their mother was getting murked. I don't know how Moehling packed that much death into this book. And it just was like, oh, it was rough. It was brutal. It was... and some of the descriptors of what was going on, like this is probably, as someone who reads horror, this isn't the most gory book on the face of the planet. There are worse books when it comes to just absolutely rancid, disgusting things happening to people. But there were some descriptors in this book where even I was like, there's one scene towards the end. Oh my goodness. Just, oh my goodness. It was devastating. Anyways, I originally gave this book 4.25. My reasoning behind giving it a 4.25 was because of that kind of lull in the first half of the book. I've rated all the other books of 4.75. All of his other works in the Packard universe, I have rated 4.75. And a part of me wants to rate this higher than the rest because of just like how much went down and how much Oh my God, we interacted with so many different characters in this book. Like, when you say you want character interactions, like, this is the book that has so much character interactions. It has Packard talking to Suresh, who is like the tech guy of the police force. We have Reynolds, who's the new detective on the scene. We have Thielen. We have Shepard, who, you know, I didn't really hate Shepard. I mean, he's still making some dumb decisions, but we have Sheriff Shepard in town. I will say, though, some of my favorite characters, specifically Kelly and Gary, while they did make appearances in this book, they didn't make as many as I personally would like. But then we got to meet new characters. We got to interact with like people from Packard's past. It was just so many character interactions, and it all made sense. It all lined up. It all clicked together. Is this a 5-star book? Am I talking myself into making this a 5-star book? I'm really glad like I slept on this, because I finished this book last night, and just like the more I talk about the book, the more I'm like really appreciating all of the nuanced details in it. I could feel the heat of this book. I could feel the humidity. I could smell the Canadian wild. I do have a bone to pick though. Mr. Moehling. Ben was down in the Twin Cities. This entire time, the air quality has been absolute trash because of the wildfires up north. He goes down to the Twin Cities and he's like, the skies are so blue. There's no haziness. I can smell the fresh summer air. It's amazing. I can't believe there's a place in this world that isn't impacted by these wildfires. And I would just like to note that for the past probably 3+ years, the Twin Cities have been impacted by the Canadian wildfires. We have had the haze. We have smelt the smoke. Last summer was actually brutal when it came to that. I feel like half of summer was consumed by hazy smoke. And it was hot. Everything smelled like a wildfire. It's not just people up north being impacted by it. Us Southerners, we are also impacted by these wildfires as well. So that was like my one thing. I was like, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. I'm sure it's a lot more intense up north, and it lasts probably quite a bit longer up north, but we also get collateral damage from the wildfires down here. This is such not only a phenomenal series. If you want to read like a detective crime series, 10 out of 10. Absolutely could not recommend more. I would highly encourage people to read them in chronological order, because there are just so many like threads that are being intertwined, and they connect all the books. And the ending of Mr. Moehling, the ending of this book, I'm gonna need your next book to come out ASAP. That was so dirty what you did to us. That was so dirty what you did to us. Anyways, y'all, long story short, I'm pretty sure this is a 5-star book. Absolutely loved it. Even with the little lull, like the little lull that happened at the beginning of the book ended up being such a beautiful moment at the end of the book. The whole series, I couldn't recommend the whole series more, and I'm like so glad that even though I DNF'd And There He Kept Her a couple years ago, I'm really glad that I picked the series back up. When I tell you that when you get a character perspective in this series, it's not always going to be the bad guy. For Packard alone, like the Packard we met in book 1 is not the same Packard that we're dealing with in book 4. Detective Ben Packard is the most amazing detective in the history of detectives. He's passionate about his job. He's passionate about his community. He's empathetic towards people, but he also gets shit done, and he's a no-nonsense dude, and he's just like the epitome of what you want a detective to be in real life and in your books. And he's a messy person in his personal life, and we discover that very much so in this book, but messy in like a good way. Long story short, I would definitely recommend reading this book in particular in the heat of summer. Especially if you live in Minnesota, you'll just be like, yes, this is the brutality of summertime. The way this book makes you laugh, even through all of the devastation. I would say if you're a veteran and you have some dark humor, but you also like crime books, like this would be a great series for you. It has dark shit happening, but it has so much comedic relief. It's so good. We love it here. I love it here. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know in the comments down below, have you read this series? Have I convinced you to read this series? I have had such a great time reading these books, and truly, Mr. Moehling, if you ever see this video, I'm gonna need a book 5 to come out yesterday because I need to know what happens. Anyways, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.